We are live. Thank you so much, Paola, for being with me today.
And
I'm so
thank you,
excited.
Rebecca, for having me.
Oh, thank you, because I wanted to host you for so long. It's all about AI, and I think this is a topic that is in vogue for a long time. It will
It is
remain.
actually.
And you have a PhD in the matter, which makes you very relevant, I think, for many people in the audience here today and the ones who are following us in applying AI in a humanized way to products and practices, to the design process. And you will explain to us more about that. I think maybe just start by explaining to the audience what is it that you're specialized in, because then all the questions will probably flow from that.
Yes, so hello everyone. It's a pleasure to be here talking about this topic today. So I am an architect by training, and I just earned my PhD in urban planning with a focus on the applications of AI in the design field. More specifically, for my thesis, it was landscape architecture, but I believe that the content can be broadened to the entire design field. So I come from the infrastructure industry. Before starting my PhD, I was working on huge construction sites in the Middle East for the construction of EU transportation infrastructure. And that's where I developed my interest in AI, because at that time it was the let's say 2014, maybe 2015, around that time. There were conversations were starting around this concept of the automated designer. So as a way, to implement something to implement in the design process, to speed it up, etc., etc. So I got interested in the topic, and that's how I decided to then apply to a PhD on big data, and that's where I arrived. In the meanwhile, while pursuing my PhD, I was also a lecturer at Harvard University Graduate School of Design, where, among other stuff, I was teaching a seminar on artificial intelligence in contemporary design practices. So I kind of specialized in this matter. And yeah, I agree with you that this is really a hot topic today, like especially since the last year, since November 2022, when ChatGPT was released to the public. I believe what we are going to discuss today became a mainstream topic for conversation. So yeah, just let's go ahead.
Yeah, and I love that you got into it before it became so trendy and
Absolutely.
really made the right bet.
Yeah, I was like very interested. I knew something about AI already at the time because of a personal interest, because of the teachings of a professor, especially in Polytechnico, who told us about that back in 2004, 2005, when I took his class. So when I heard these people talking about AI as something that would have overcome human labor, I was immediately like curious to know more and skeptical at the same time, and that's where I led my research.
So when you say human labor, of course, immediately a light bulb goes in my head. HR, HR.
Yeah, of course, I know.
Because it's interesting that you say that, because even though by training, I mean, you initially started your career as by trade, you're an architect, but the design process to put together the the end result, I think it's this end-to-end ability that fascinates you more than maybe the finished product, right? And that there, a human labor is also obviously
Yeah,
present. Yeah.
yeah, let's say that my research focuses on the process that leads to the delivery of the final product, because we tend to look at the final product and forget about all the complex processes that happen behind it, which are the ones that are carried on by professionals. So I believe that in a conversation on AI, kind of overcoming that professionals, we need to focus on what that process actually is and see in which regard AI can be of help or not. And I believe that understanding the tool is really a key element. I think that because in my industry, it's since the 80s that we are implementing digital technologies. At the beginning was the computer-aided design, and then we had parametric software to automate the shaping of the forms of the buildings, etc. So let's say that AI in the form of generative design tools comes on a background of like 30 or 40 years of discussions about digitalization and how will have that impact the design process and the actual practice of architects, landscape architects, urban planners, and urban designers. So it's a pretty, let's say, it's a pretty rich research environment, the one from which I come from, and from an industry that has been facing this kind of innovation for a while. So there is a mature point of view on it. However, these days, especially, let's say since 2010, when deep learning became a thing, like the actual AI for what we know it now, like which is machine learning, deep learning, so this ability of machines, alleged ability of machines to learn from data sets and then implement autonomously solutions came to age. So, and that's substantially different because these tools can deliver an outcome autonomously somehow. And therefore, our role now is the one of evaluating such an outcome. And that's the main difference from the old, let's say, debate on digitalization and the old debate on, computer-aided design and digital tools for drawing. That is like evolving into something that is deeper. And if you look at what the overall benefits are that are claimed by the literature on the field, it's clearly, I mean, on one hand, they claim that the AI will allow us to implement unthinkable ideas. So things that are not thinkable by the human mind and therefore enable innovation. That's one of the major claims that have been done over the past 10 years about AI in the design field. But also more on the managerial side, like an idea of cost reduction by reducing the number of human professionals involved and speeding up at the same time the design process by automating certain operations within it. So let's say that there is a more dreamy idea about unthinkable ideas, new stuff, novelty, etc., and at the same time a more down-to-earth brick and mortar, let's say, let's go and optimize the business kind of thinking behind it. And all of that needs a reality check, because I can tell you, Rebecca, I was listening to these claims back in 2014, 15. I was already aware of consultants going around and saying, oh, we're going to get rid of these expensive designers and blah, blah, blah. And still has to come. You know, we are still in business and we are still practicing. So at least it did not happen in the 5 years framework they were claiming at the time. So I will say that all these statements need a reality check. So that's what I would like to contribute to.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said operations, because I was reading an article that was saying, oh, they did they voted and they picked product development professionals, and they said, what do you think AI will automate? And they all said, oh, probably the communication, that, because we already see, oh, AI, write the cover letter, right? So we think that intuitively maybe this low level communication work can be delegated, and then we stick with the strategy. But apparently it's going to be the high level strategy work that will be the vision, the identification of opportunities, that will be then delegated to AI, and we will be left with soft skills. Because you said that last time when we spoke, actually, it's the if you want to protect your career, stick to the soft skills, that creativity, that connection between stakeholders. That is what will make you, yeah, will give you an advantage in the future of work.
Oh, yes. I will say, but I will flip your statement and say that these are the highest skills, the highest.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the dumb processes can be automated. The highest human skills at the moment with the current state of the art AI, they still cannot be automated, not fully and not with a full reliability at least. So if you look, for example, at my industry, AI has been implemented at every level, from the concept design with all these, image generation algorithms that can deliver fancy new views of a potential building, etc., up to, detailed design and the construction site management. In every other creative field, like if you think in the film industry, it's everywhere. It's CGI, and CGI has been around for a while now, but now they are widely using the automated and automatically generated backgrounds for movies, for example, as well as automatically generated scripts. So it's really affecting all the areas of creativity. However, I will say that this needs to be re-looked at, because these processes are not just mechanical operations of putting stuff on a screen or putting stuff on a place. It actually requires a lot of relational skills and a lot of sensible qualities and skills from the human practitioner to actually make all the meaningful decisions that can lead from a complex, let's say, a complex set of, a variety of options, down to the one that is going to work on that site, is going to work for that movie, is going to work for that specific client. So all of that judgment, and that's basically the creative process. So the creative process is going through that recursive series of decisions and let's say intuitions, as well as rational thinking, to narrow down a variety of options down to the one that works better for that place, and then implement it. So it's really, really a human-centered activity. And in fact, I would like to bring your attention to the definition of human-centered design,
Yeah.
because I think that will somehow that will be leading the implementation of AI in the future. So first of all, I'd like to give your audience a little bit of an idea of what human-centered design is, because someone might not have heard of the term. So there are some principles of human-centered design that you can easily find out if everyone can Google them, and they are easily accessible on the internet. But just to say in a very, very broad way, empathy, collaboration, awareness of biases, active listening, inclusivity, flexibility, adaptability. So somehow, like, if your business model or business plan doesn't work, you adapt it, to the new context condition you're finding throughout your implementation. And an interesting aspect, which is the learn first and implement later, meaning you, instead of delivering something and then seeing how it works, you should do the due diligence before to avoid harm. So there is a kind of an ethical standpoint in the concept of human-centered design. So in a nutshell, we could say that human-centered design is a design approach that serves human thriving rather than diminish it. So if we look at AI in this framework, I believe this is a very useful framework to look at AI and uncover certain potential issues and potential liabilities that needs to be addressed if you want to implement AI in a business in a meaningful way. So the first point that comes to my mind is the one of the biases. So you know how AI works. AI is basically a statistical tool that looks at a big data set. Literally, big data is the term that is used for addressing these data sets that, according to Robert Kitching, are huge. So the data points are, the quantity of data points is enormous compared to regular statistical data sets. They are high in velocity, meaning that they are collected almost in real times, and they are very diverse, meaning that they are collected with tools that are very different one from another, so they cannot really be compared in a structured way as old style statistics used to do. So these data sets are used to train the algorithms to teach, like allegedly, let's use this word, even if it's not proper, because it might suggest that the algorithm is actually learning, which is not. But let's say that these data sets are used to teach the algorithms about a certain topic, and then based on what the algorithms learn or sees into the patterns he can spot using statistical tools within the data set, the algorithm will be then able to give suggestions, etc., according to other situations based on what he learned on that previous data set. But this data set is not, let's say, it's not objective. It's actually conjectural. So every data has been sensed somewhere from a sensor that someone put there for a reason. Someone was paying for that. There was an agenda behind. Like, these things don't exist in their own. They exist because there is a need for them and they were produced for a reason. So that is already a bias. So these data sets are sourced for a specific reason, and this should be somehow revealed in them. If you look at other processes that heavily use data, for example, in urban planning, we use maps that are based on geographical data sets in order to make strategical decisions for the development of a city, let's say. Every one of these data sets that urban planners use in their maps come with a metadata, which is a text files that is attached to it, in which you can read who made this data set, for which reason, who paid for that, and which was the agenda behind it. So somehow to give you an idea of the biases that you are bringing into your work. This is not happening for big data at the moment. So here you see there is a first big problem with hidden biases within the data set that affect the output that the algorithm will give after learning on that information. The second and connected point that comes to mind is the one of inclusivity. So since the data sets are biased, then whatever result you
Come out.
get will be affected by that bias. So, for example, an AI algorithm that has been trained on a data set coming from a Western country, which is mainly white, for example, might be discriminatory toward the Black population, for example. And for instance, there is a very interesting book on this topic by mathematicians Cathy O'Neill called The Weapons of Math Destruction. That is super interesting, and I highly recommend everyone to read to give an idea of this problem of algorithms and inclusivity. And also, also because of that, the flexibility and adaptability. So since our outcomes are AI outcomes are based on data sets that were sourced at a certain point, if this data set cannot be updated in a constant and real-time way, he will lack the perception, I will say, lack information about the current context. So if a decision in a business, for example, are based on the outcome of such an algorithm, they might be biased toward a past state of things rather than the current state of things. So in case the people running such a company consider the outcome of this algorithm as a prescription rather than just a suggestion, they might be led into wrongful decisions, leading to a potential harm to their business because of a lack of understanding of what's going on in society at that specific real time. Because don't forget, these data sets are about the past. And we are now in the here and now, we are in the present, and we need to make decisions about the future. So the past can be giving us an idea about patterns, like weather predictions, like how it was in the past, so we can assume it will be the same in the future, but we cannot be sure about that.
Yeah.
So these are suggestions rather than prescriptions, I would say. And then that other principle I mentioned earlier, the learn first. This brings in an important point about accountability, legal accountability, because more and more, like, we are getting out of the far west phase of AI, like where it was unregulated and it was a matter of very few big tech firms with incredible capability and or super sectorial academic research, and getting into everyone's hands, into everyone's power through tools like ChatGPT and similars. And more, we are getting to understand that the person that powers the algorithm or uses the algorithm is responsible for an error by the algorithm. And there are already some cases in which the courts around the world have been basically finding guilty the owner of the algorithm or the user of the algorithm for giving to a customer, for example, a wrong answer to a question. A few weeks ago, there was in the news that an airline had to fully refund a client who sued them because he failed in first place to get a refund for a flight because the chatbot gave the wrong, let's say, informations about what to do to get the refund. So he failed at getting the actual refund and he sued the company and he won. So that's to give a very simple, this can be a kind of simple case, but it's a let's say a representation of a tendency that is going on about regulating AI that is happening quite fast, and authorities are catching up on that, especially here in Europe, quite quickly, I have to say. So just to give you, this is just an idea of what, all the potential problems that you can have while working on a product or running a business through AI that you need to take into account. And I want to stress that that framework of the human-centered design can be a good one to test, whatever application you want to implement and see what are the potential pitfalls and get ready to address the risks and be ready for that. So the point here is not to use AI. I want to stress on it, is to use AI in a meaningful way and in a safe way somehow. So safe for your customers, but also safe for you as a business owner, or you as an employee, not running into potential liabilities in the future, deep future or near future, based on, depending on what's the subject of the application. So it's really, I think, a growing debate, and everyone, I will recommend to everyone to get a little bit of literacy on that, to be able to assess the various situations as soon as they present to their daily business practice.
There are obvious benefits and risks. I think, as you mentioned, are there any industries that are leveraging AI for their design process over others? Do you think there are some industries that will be able to do it better than others? For some, might be easier than for others.
Yeah, I have an idea on that. It's just my own impression, but the more you are digital, the easier will be to use these tools. The
Yeah.
more you are a brick and mortar thing, like building actual buildings in the world, doing, I don't know, activities that require an impact on the physical world, then it's going to be harder, because the physical world poses a variety of challenges that are not easily transferable into the digital world, into, numeric, like evaluated numerically to be quantified and managed by an algorithm. So, for instance, if you are someone doing websites, or like graphics for an online environment. Well, I mean, they already use these tools widely. Like,
Yeah.
there are issues with the copyright because basically these tools are use data sets that they get from the internet, and these images were originally put on the internet by their human authors, and so they have a copyright. So there is here a big question about copyright law, but that's not the focus of today's conversation with you. But yeah, but they already use it, and the result can be acceptable. However, if you look into something like construction site management, for example, it will be much harder to implement them because the liability is higher. You know, there are like architects and engineers face legal issues if they fail at providing a building that is safe for the users, for example. And there are massive regulations about that. So wherever you have this system of regulations already in place from a pre-AI world, to implement AI will be harder, in my opinion, while in industries that are less regulated and more digitally based, like they work on a digital platform, that's where it's going to be easier. But that's just my idea based on the current state of what I see, by talking to professionals that are trying. You know, the mood right now is to drop money into AI and come out with, that application that will revolutionize our business, our processes, our design making. But I can see that the more successful practices are the ones that are highly digital. For the others, it's there is then the issue of the privacy of the clients, the issue of the liability, etc., etc. So it gets a little harder to implement.
Yeah, I mean, you said digital, and I'm thinking, the IT industry, software, not tangible. There was a quote from the NVIDIA founder, CEO, that said, like AI. He was saying it's our job to create computing technology so that nobody has to program anymore. That the programming will be delegated. So everybody is now a programmer through AI. That's the miracle of AI.
Yeah, yes. Actually, I read the same yesterday on Business Insider. It was
Yeah,
from a CEO. I don't remember the name of the guy
yeah.
from a
I
tech
think it's
company. I don't remember. Maybe you saw it already. It was yesterday in my newsfeed. He said
yeah,
exactly the same. Like coding, like if I would have, that's the quote was more or less like if I would have a teenager kid now, I will
yeah,
not stress on coding because coding is not going to be a tool, a necessary like skill for humans in the future. And I do agree 100% with that because everything that is digital, it's already numeric, as they say in French. So it can be addressed by AI in a very near future if it's not already, because AIs are already able to write code. I
yeah,
mean, Google, I think it was back like 3 or 4 years ago that Google said that for the first time, one of their algorithms was able to write another working algorithm. So
yeah.
it's nothing new. It's already there. Actually, we are years into this stuff. And that's why, like, I'm very, very, I mean, I'm an academic, so I'm into teaching. And I'm always wondering how to grow the professionals of the future into being able to address, like, to live and thrive in a world where these tools, which are here and are here to stay, like, they are not going to disappear. Like, so how do we train our young people to work with these tools and to be in control, let's say, not being overwhelmed by AI, but actually do great things with AI together with all the other tools we have in our toolbox since the beginning of humanity, because really we have been, as humans, we have been developing technological tools since the early days. Actually, that's why what really made it possible for us to grow as a species. It was the ability to use tools, and that's true from the very, very early days of the Homo sapiens sapiens. So it's really a matter of growing the human potential. That's how I say it. So instead of trying to behave like a machine by coding, like try to behave like a human. So, and let's focus on these human abilities, which are the ones that, like, we will rediscover them. They have been there around forever, and they are the qualities of a good designer. They are the qualities of a good CEO. They are the qualities of a good manager in every single field. But we over the past maybe 10 to 20 years, we tend to go toward a more like, oh, we need to be able to do, to program, and somehow reduce the stuff to something that can fit within an algorithm. But that's not the case. Like, we can do much more as humans. So if I have to give some tips, to people, and see, like, young people especially, on one, at first I will say, get literate about AI. Don't be afraid. Like, I know there is a math involved, some math to do, to learn about machine learning, etc. But there are excellent tools online, like on Coursera. Andrew Ng has a introductory course on machine learning. Andrew Ng is the founder of Google DeepMind, and really, I will say, a legend in deep learning. He's one of the first ones that were implementing this technology, and he's teaching the basics on a Coursera, on the Coursera platform. So I will invite everyone to get that class and learn the basics to understand what AI is, and that will help a lot in imagining meaningful uses and applications for this technology. And then I will say, like, there are a few books that explain stuff. One is Cathy O'Neill. I already told, I can show you, I have it here. This is Cathy O'Neill book. I highly recommend this one. And then there is also Meredith Brousseau, Artificial Unintelligence. Here she makes an amazing point about techno-chauvinism, which is this idea that every problem needs to have a technological solution, and why this is an illusion, basically. And it's a very interesting read. And then the last one, this one is super cool, is Artificial Intelligence, A Guide for Thinking Humans, by Melanie Mitchell. Melanie Mitchell is a legend in the field. She has been a researcher in AI for her entire life. She did her PhD with Douglas Hofstadter. She teaches at the Santa Fe Institute. She's a legend. And she did this book in which she explains AI to the thinking humans, so to all of us. So it's really something that I would recommend, just to give an insight on what that is. And then together with that, and there are a lot of podcasts, a lot. I mean, the internet is full of resources on these topics, so they are just a Google search away from you. And I will also say, grow your human potential. What does it mean? Like, we know that AI is excellent at calculus. Like, AI can perform calculations faster and better than we do. That's a fact. I mean, that's what it was designed for at the very beginning. However, wherever there is a relational aspect or something that requires the making of physical things, that's where AI really struggles, at least now. I don't know, in 50 years from now, maybe we will face a completely different environment. But right now, AI is not very good at making stuff in the physical world, and it's not very good at human relational things. So, like, grow into that direction. So, for instance, negotiation is a good skill to acquire. And again, the internet is full of courses of people that teach you which are the techniques, how to do that. Like, another potentially interesting job is to be into sales, being the frontman toward the client, being the frontman, like being the designer that makes the strategic decisions to get to the final product, and discuss that with the client. That's going to last. So leadership positions, and by leadership, I mean the highest, I mean it in the highest sense, like really the ones that have a comprehensive view of the problem and can output decisions that will lead the whatever the business, the design process to the delivery of whatever they are designing or selling or whatever they are doing, in every possible field. So that leads to another aspect, which I will encourage the young people to get an eye on, which is artisanal skills, like highly skilled artisans, people that can do things with their hands, are going to be in high demand, because that's what luxury is at the very end. Is that the uniqueness that comes from the error of the human hand that doesn't do the same bag every time. So if you own I don't know, Hermes bag, that's unique because it was handmade, the materials are the finest possible, and there will be no Hermes bag that is the same of another one because it was done by a human hand. So this is a quality that even in the design world, I see it emerging. People I know I'm into shoes and these things. So there are more and more small artisans that start to brand themselves online, and they have a very clear and recognizable line, and they design their own stuff and they make them and they sell them for good money, and they can make a living out of that. And it's very interesting to see this tendency growing. And so I will say, yeah, that's really part of the thing. Is I forecast that we will get back to an interest on the actual physical things, like the objects, and design and product in that regard can be seen as a counterpart of a more automated AI-based processes in the digital world. And actually, also, like, this idea of the human as a key part of the process brings me to this idea of the feedback loop that I really want to mention, because once we do stuff, we are in a feedback loop with our tools, with our computers, with our, I don't know, pens and pencils, brushes, if we are painters, or, whatever tool the shoemaker used to make the shoes. And there is a constant feedback loop. And the same will happen with AI. And actually, the rediscovery of this feedback loop is what is going to bring back the trust on AI. Because I believe that at the moment we are in a peak of trust, because for the past 10 years we heard magic about AI. It's like, oh my God, that's going to solve every problem in the world. And so we have very high expectations, very high. And now we are going to realize that maybe it needs a reality check. So maybe it's not that easy. So there will be a downfall of the trust in AI, in my opinion. That's, again, my opinion, so take it for what it is. My opinion is nothing written on stone, but I forecast that. And I believe that the trust on AI will come back only if we start to see it as a tool that the human will use to do stuff in a feedback loop with the human. Exactly as we see a hammer if we want to hang a picture on the wall or whatever. And only if we will start to use the AI for the applications that make sense with what AI is. AI is a digital statistical tool, so it can do some stuff very well. It cannot do other stuff. So let me give an example. If you have a hammer and you want to hang a picture on your wall, you will use it, to drop the stuff into the wall, and then you hang the picture. But you won't use it on a glass vase because you're going to destroy it. So that's not a correct use of the hammer, or it is only if you want to destroy that vase, So the same is going to happen with AI. We will grow more and more literate about that, and we will know what for in a much clearer way, and it will last in certain types of applications, and it won't in others, or it will exist in more physical applications only in a feedback loop with the human user, designer, let's say. In that regard, we are all designers.
Yeah, I was going to talk about human-centered, um, I guess AI human-centered, or just the trust that,
Human-centered AI.
yeah, human-centered AI trust, the trust that is built. Now, it's really funny because somebody told me, "Oh, Rebecca, that was last year when AI became really a big deal, and early last year, and everybody was worried about their jobs." And I heard a quote: "No, no, no, AI is not going to replace you, but someone using AI will." And so learn how
That's
to
the
use
point.
it. Yeah, learn how to use it, learn how to partner with it. So immediately I said, okay, let's become friends.
With AI. Hello, AI. How are you doing?
I'm actually really polite with ChatGPT, and it's very polite back at me, and like to establish that trust, I guess, with the tool. Um, and the limits of the trust, I mean, are so many. I don't know much about zero trust, but I know enough to I mean, the name in itself suggests that we should not trust it until we are given enough reasons to. But I think, like you mentioned, there's the bias of the cultural aspect of it. Like the output is just as good as the input, right? The data privacy is going to come into play. Yeah, I guess the human oversight, the quality, ethical aspects of it. So much comes into it. It becomes really overwhelming if you think about it for social acceptance, cultural acceptance. I don't expect you to give us an answer, by the way. That's not your role. I don't think that's your. But I think at least let's do what we can to get familiar with the tool, right? As professionals in whatever space. Why don't you tell us, because you work in a very tangible space, how you can get friendly with AI for architecture, for design,
Well,
for
AI is a technology, and every technology is an infrastructure to some extent for us making stuff, and therefore is a socio-technical system. So that this process that we are facing now for AI happened already for every technology we use, like older technologies. For instance, like if I look at my own business, like architecture, architecture has been around for thousands of years as a technology. You know, the fact that we build shelters for us, it's probably one of the oldest technologies around. And for this reason, it's highly regulated. So society imposed its own rules on it. So architects these days and engineers face a lot of regulations. Every time they have to build something, they have to follow standards and codes, and they have to do that according to certain ethical approaches and deontological approaches. So I believe that's going to happen for AI as well. It's a product of the human creativity. It's a technology. So exactly as every other technology, exactly it's happened for every other technologies, it will go through a process of standardization, and we will have soon tools that have been tested and have been somehow made compatible with the society in which we live, with the legal system in which we live, with, you know, the socio-technical systems that we use every day. Like, think, for example, in the railroads. Like, railroads back in the 19th century were a brand new things. They were developed by private companies, and every company was doing his own stuff. So their own type of rails, their own scheduling, their own whatever. And at some point, they understood that to make them be very useful for the population, all of that needed a coordination and standardization. So they started coordinating the timetables, for example. They started making sure that when you go from one nation to the other, they have the same type of distance between the two rails, etc. So the trains can go back and forward. And all of that required time. It costed money, but it made a new technology that was widely developed into something we use to the day. And we know very clearly what for. It's to go from place A to place B. So we don't use a train to make a drawing, or like something like that. We use a train to go from a place to another, according to the scheduling, according to all these standards that were developed over time to make that technology serving society for something. And I believe that's going to happen. We will have to familiarize with AI. It's going to be,
Yeah.
it's there, it's already there, and it's going to be there, and it's not going to go away. And that's good because there are good things that can be done with it. But we need to clearly put them on focus and avoid these, in my opinion, these enthusiastic narrative that pretends that AI will be the solution for everything.
Yeah, it's a bit
But that's not the
simplistic.
case. It's just a technology as every other technology. There is a scope of work. It works very well for something. It's completely useless in other fields.
Yeah. Okay, well, do you have any sort of tip for people who are now building their careers? Because you were so visionary betting on AI at the right time. For people starting off now, like we said, okay, maybe AI will not replace you, but like we talked about the high skills, we talked about, getting familiar with the tool, but how would you today enter the market, entering the design function with AI as a tool? I think you can inspire so many people watching us today to make the right choice and place the right bets, right? How would you help them engineer their careers in a
Well,
futuristic way?
let me say something that might be unpopular. So don't be afraid of art. So
Okay.
so far we come from 10 or 20, maybe 30 years in which everyone was like STEM. You need to be fluent in coding, you need to be fluent, but we are now understanding that this is not anymore the skill of the future. The skill of the future is to be able with relationship, is to be able with culture, is to be fully aware of what's going on around you. So somehow I will say read books like poetry, art, practice these things. If you are into painting, for example, do that. And so somehow grow yourself into an interesting human being, growing your individual interests and growing your ability to understand the others, to be empathic, and to somehow tailor a CV, an experience, a line of experience that is true to you. And I know that people might say, no way, because you need to make sure then you will be making money. So don't follow this kind of advice. Just go for mathematics or whatever. But
Yeah.
these professions now are highly inflated somehow. And if AIs will deliver algorithms for real, which they already do, by the way, we won't need so many coders anymore. So maybe we will need people able to tell AI what to do, and able to envision new uses for AI. And for that, you need to be a cultured person. And we need an amazing time for that, because everything is available online for free or almost for free. You can order a book and get it delivered the day after at your place. You can get it on an ebook and have it on your Kindle and travel with 1,000 books in your pocket. So there are podcasts about basically everything. So there are no more excuses like I don't have time, because we all cook, we all run, we all do this stuff, and we can listen to a podcast in the meanwhile to
Yeah.
grow our interests and do stuff. If you are into art, again, practice art, like get exposed to the work of artists, because artists are very good at seeing the most, let's say, contemporary trends of society. So, for instance, artists are working on the integration of their work with algorithms since at least 10 years or even more. So, how did I came to look at AI? By looking at art, because in
Yeah.
art that was already a thing 10 years ago. So people were already having these conversations. So it's really a matter of getting out of the comfort zone and explore. And the more like peculiar you are in the way you draft, you frame your experience, the more cultured, but not cultured like I'm a good student in school, like cultured like I have a true interest into something kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the more you will be successful. That's what I hope it will happen in the future.
You make me want to go to the Kunsthaus.
Yeah, just do. Like Kunsthaus are there for that reasons. Actually, as architects, we put so much effort into making this place into very nice and enjoyable displays for art to be available to everyone for as little as the entrance ticket, which is nothing compared to the value of what's inside there.
Yeah, it's true. That's so true. And I think we lose touch with that side of our, like, the right brain side of things, because we're just so left brain oriented in our work in many professions, right? I shouldn't say that as a coach, but it's true. Like it boils down
Yeah,
to
and if you think even the more rational
yeah,
operations still rely a lot on impressions, gut feelings, etc.
yeah,
And people make decisions based on their biases every day. Like everything we do is a humanistic practice. And by humanistic, I mean a practice that is deeply influenced by society and by culture. So somehow, and with our acts, we basically influence that system. So we provide our feedback to that and we influence the work of others. So somehow the purely rational experience doesn't really exist. And I
yeah,
believe that the debate on AI will highlight this, and this will be our main gain from the whole AI business, is to refocus on what are the peculiarities of the human mind, human conscience, how powerful we are as entities,
yeah,
as, like individuals, but also all together interacting in a society and in an environment, together with ecological systems and animals, nature, plants, etc., everything overall. So I believe the more we grow ourselves sensible to that,
yeah.
the easier will be to have a career, and the easier will be also to see like the big changes coming and anticipate them and move into another field if necessary. Like literally, I can tell you, when I started my PhD on this topic, people were like, you crazy.
Yeah. What are you doing? What's AI?
35 at that time, and I was like, oh, wait a second, what are you doing? But now I can totally see that I was right, and
Yeah.
I had a good intuition. But that intuition was fed by the status quo of culture, and I was paying attention to that.
As an artist, as an engineer of homes. That's really interesting. Paola, I am so thankful that you brought all these insights. I'm thinking about how I'm raising my kid now. I'm just going through my habits. When am I going to go to when was the last time I went to an art exhibition or a gallery or a cultural experience? Because I think we favor Technorama over Kunsthaus. But it's really interesting what you said also about, maybe, mathematics is always going to be around, but maybe a lot of that work will be automated and
Yeah, and don't forget that also mathematicians, by their own saying, they say that basically art and mathematics and philosophy are very liminal. So somehow it's not this idea that mathematics is objective or whatever. It's a little bit reductive. I believe I collaborated with some of them, and I found them to be among the most creative people I met. in my research adventure. So really, like even for being a mathematics, you need to be like curious about other stuffs, because
Yeah.
they basically research like processes and phenomena through the language of mathematics. So somehow they don't live in a somehow separated world. They are in the same world with us, and they are humans, by the way, and they are very creative, I can tell you.
Yeah. I think the work of Gaudi it really exemplifies this kind of like when two world meet, like engineering, nature. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, actually, again, even engineering and architecture, they are not so different.
yeah,
The only real difference I will say is that within setting up the requirements which we follow as architects, we add more to the ones of engineers, which is aesthetics. So
yeah,
beauty. Beauty is a requirement for us. While engineers, they don't openly, a lot of them do actually. And if you talk to them, they are much more interested that you will expect about a certain stuff, about music, opera, and whatever, art. Like I had this conversation with so many engineers, and they were all a lot of them into opera, a lot of them, I can tell. So it's really that then we have these disciplinary silos that were put in place to organize our knowledge system and to make it work somehow, because
yeah.
you need some structure
Great,
for it.
everything.
You cannot do everything,
Yeah,
like especially in a super complex world like the one we are in now. But then in their private life, to get like, as architects are very very precise people, I can tell you, very practical and precise people. Engineers are like much closer to us for the type of interest that then someone will imagine. So again, I will say, just, it's not that it's either math or art, do both.
yeah. They are totally,
Yeah.
yeah, interconnected in a way that is quite surprising. And it's funny that it's AI who's bringing this to
AI is revealing that. It's
right.
amazing.
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
basically the main things that we will get from the whole AI global conversation that is going on now. It's that, I believe.
Oh, thank you so much. This is so insightful. I am so pleased that you are here with us today. I could carry on for 2 hours with this and
Yeah, me
talking
too,
to
actually. I love to speak about these topics.
talking to you is so such a breath of fresh air. You bring such a original perspective that we don't hear anywhere. And we hear a lot about AI, but I don't think a lot of people know about it to this extent and with this fresh new perspective that you have acquired, mixing art with science. So thank you so much. Any last words for the viewers? Tell me.
Yeah, like that, this art and science splitting is very recent in history. So just if you look back to the history of knowledge, the two things were really interconnected until very very recent years. So yeah, just don't be afraid of following your interests wherever they are, and even if they don't fall within the perfect STEM career,
Yeah,
you will benefit from the variety. That's something I will say, like people will benefit from being ready to switch from different tasks depending on the fast pace changes that are going to happen, are already happening. Look at the world, like over the past 3 or 4 years, what happened. I mean, everything was revolutionized.
yeah.
So I will say that's gonna stay, like I believe, as a kind of a condition we have to live with. And so be ready to change quickly. It's a good byproduct of having broad series of interests, and be ready to face new conditions as soon as they emerge.
Thank you. That's lovely. Thank you so much. And thanks all of you for following us. And you will probably reach out to Paula separately via LinkedIn. But once again, thanks a million for being with us. And hope to have you again very soon on our LinkedIn profile.
With pleasure, Rebecca. We can do that another time for sure.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody. Thank you for listening.